For many years, the conversation about the age of Aquarius, this is the dawning of the age of, what does that mean? What is the Piscean? What is the Aquarian? What is this getting at? And how can we actually make sense of it in a way that might be useful? And I really find that if we begin to see that we as human beings are fairly traumatized psychically, meaning that the abuse we suffer in this world, we have suffered in many worlds for a very, very long time, because you could argue it's an agreement field that has to do with power and dominance, submission, or being in charge, or being either here to rule or to be ruled. This is really lasted for thousands of years. This is why an age, in terms of an astrological cycle, the sidereal year, lasts thousands of years, meaning that if we think that we are part of evolution, development in consciousness that matures or experience certain agreements and conditions in order to bring forth unique qualities and conditions. And this is what we are really and began to move away from in the late 1700s, early 1800s. I always look at Beethoven, William Blake, the founding fathers, this idea of the French Revolution, the unique self-determination, self-independence from religion. These ideas, you could say, are the beginning of the implanting of the Aquarian potentiality. But we also have this emergence of the Industrial Revolution. So we have one size fits all. Everyone wears the same costume. This is what the painter Magritte got at with the bowler hat and all the men with the umbrella and the suits, because everything was to create a codification where people played a part in a larger machine. And even a lot of the philosophies were essentially a machine-like consciousness. Well, when we invest into that Piscean model of domination, which really has to do with the age of religion and faith, meaning that there is an offstage player who is powerful that you are not, that you must be obedient to, and if you are, you will be rewarded, and if you are not, you will be punished. And this, of course, becomes also in the political structure as well. If you play by our rules, you will be gifted, and if you play against us, you will be punished. But this has the potentiality not simply in an outer form, but to seek and seep into the inner form, meaning like, what is my mind agreeing to? Am I really in this power of dominance and submission within my own self, meaning that only certain parts of myself I like and they will be dominant and the other things I will repress? Because many of the things we see in the outer world, we must understand, are a projection of our own mind, because it helps us see, why is there so much suppression and repression? Why is there a type of tyranny? Well, there's also personal tyranny within the individual, a disgust for oneself, an unwillingness to listen to different parts of one's own psyche. And this is where the Aquarian impulse becomes so interesting, because it is saying, essentially, that the Aquarian is, and I would liken it to a great musician, a great jazz musician, let's say. He knows his instrument, she knows her instrument, meaning that if she plays the clarinet, she's a genius at it. And it's not a contest between the saxophone player and the clarinet. It's a way to work and trust both individuals' excellence. Not in a way, this sense of, let's find the lowest level of mediocrity and be as one, meaning don't think, don't do, but it's this other sense of what you would say when the psyche itself moves away from a dominance and submission. There's part of me that I need to submit to, and part of myself that I will allow to dominate me, and realize much more as my tarot works out, which is we are composed of qualities and conditions very much like a piano, keys, notes, qualities of who and what we think we are. And the genius of the Aquarian realization is that the outer and the inner are connected, and that the outer chaos of the world is not to define the world, but almost alchemically speaking, it's the raw material by which we are forced then to subjectively, uniquely take responsibility, saying, if I cannot change that, and that is an old agreement, then at least let me examine, am I making that agreement in myself? And this is why when people begin to talk about, these great new age and ideas, but when they start moving into conspiracy, they start bringing in darkness, they start bringing in fear of others, this is very Piscean, because it's proving your point at the expense of another, meaning my point is not strong in and of itself, it exists in reaction to something else. And the Aquarian says, I am much more, think of me as a gardener of the soul, meaning if that tree over there is rotting,
I'm not going to spend my time on the rotting tree, and I'm not going to correct it because it's already in a state of decay. So what I'm going to do is take my time on this earth. I'm going to plant a seed and realize that, like love, like anything truly meaningful, the only person that knows it is you yourself. It exists within you. It is subjective. It's not shared. It's not a generalization. And you could say that the Piscean mind thinks in generalities. And when you think in generalities, it's easy to be for or against and to pride yourself on what you're for because they're the problem. But when you become an Aquarian, you also become a librarian. You realize you might not like all the books in the library, and you might not like all the stories that the human being tells, and you might not even agree with how many human beings act. But it's still part of the weave of who and what we are. And therefore the Aquarian principle is you must take this as raw material, not as a given. That's Piscean. You need to be against that. That's saying, no, I need to observe that. What I need to be for is for this. I need to be able to impose, not on others, but within myself, an agreement that says, I am the key to my own self-liberation. I will not wait for my neighbor. I will not wait for another. I will, because I can. And that's, in a way, the simple mathematics of the Aquarian. I do this not because I have to, but simply because I can. I choose to see the world this way, not because I'm against the way you see the world, but this is how I honor the world. And I tell you, this is how we begin to become artists of consciousness. We begin to realize that as artists of consciousness, there are no two artists that are the same. But the beauty is that it's not the same. It's different instruments, it's different music, it's different approaches. And in each then, like the library, we see a symphony of human possibility and say, I like being part of this group. I like being part of those that said, yes, I think, even in the darkness of the world, we can bring forth the light. But we're not going to bring it in a package of light. We're going to find the light that was in the dark, and we're going to make something that forgives the dark and reveals the future as a beckoning that says, you are what you dream possible. So dream beautifully, and don't dream at the expense of another, but dream at the worthiness of who you might be if you didn't and weren't afraid to simply say, I begin. Not they begin, I begin. So let this Aquarian I begin. Trust it.